When we think about the United States, a land of, well, agricultural plenty, you'd probably assume nutrient deficiencies are a thing of the past, right? The common thinking is we get everything we need from the food on our plates. But what if that's just not the whole story? What if there's a kind of hidden hunger affecting millions? Well, we're about to find out. Yeah, take a look at this. This is a direct quote from Dr. Tirona Lodog, a nationally recognized physician, and she said this while presenting CDC data to Congress. It's a pretty bold statement, and it just cuts right through all our assumptions. And as we're about to see, the data really backs her up, painting a picture of a problem that's widespread but often invisible. So let's just dive right in. How big of a deal is this hidden hunger? Well, the numbers from our national health surveys are, and I'm not exaggerating here, pretty staggering. Let's start with vitamin D. The sunshine vitamin. Get this. A shocking 96% of Americans have a diet that falls below the average requirement. Let that sink in for a second. 96%. That's basically everyone. This vitamin is absolutely crucial for our bones and our immune system, yet almost all of us are not getting enough from our food. And it doesn't stop there. When we look at vitamin A, which is so important for our vision and immune function, over half the population, 51%, is coming up short based on their diet. We're not talking about a small fraction here. This is the majority of people. And what about calcium? The cornerstone of strong bones and teeth? Exactly half. 50% of all Americans have a diet below the average requirement. Again, these aren't some fringe numbers. This is hitting the mainstream, big time. And this table really gives us the broader view. You can see that 43% of people are below the dietary requirement for vitamin C. Millions are also falling short on B6, iron, and B12. And each of these gaps comes with a potential cost, from just feeling tired all the time to much more serious neurological issues. So this isn't about one or two vitamins. It's a whole pattern of widespread dietary gaps. Now, those national averages are alarming enough on their own, but they actually hide an even more important part of the story, because the burden of these nutrient deficiencies, well, it's not shared equally. Some groups are way more vulnerable than others. When we start to break down the data by demographics, the picture gets a lot sharper and the disparities become, frankly, impossible to ignore. Let me show you what I mean. Just look at this data on anemia, which is often caused by not having enough iron. The prevalence among Black non-Hispanic women is 31.4%. That's almost 1 in 3. Now compare that to white non-Hispanic women, where it's 8.3%. I mean, that's not a small gap. That's a massive, almost 4 times difference. It's stark. And this isn't just an issue with iron. We see the same pattern of disparity with other key nutrients. For example, one study looked at pregnant women, a time when nutrition is just so critical, and it found that non-white women were over 3.5 times more likely to be insufficient in vitamin E. This shows a consistent pattern of nutritional inequality that can have consequences for generations. And this chart, wow, it shows a whole other side to this story, the connection between health and wealth. The risk of anemia is more than double for people in the lowest income bracket compared to those in the highest. As family income goes up, the prevalence of anemia steadily goes down. It's a clear sign that economic factors play a huge role in who gets access to proper nutrition. So you gotta ask, right? In a country with so much food, why are so many of us undernourished? Well, the reasons are complicated, and they touch on everything from our food supply to where we live to our own personal choices. This quote right here really gets to the heart of it. We have plenty of calories available, that's the energy-rich part, but those calories often come from processed foods that are stripped of the essential vitamins and minerals our bodies actually need to function. So we're filling up, but we're not really fueling up. And for millions of people, getting healthy food isn't even a choice. The USDA defines a food desert as a low-income area where you have to travel more than a mile to get to a supermarket. Think about that. This is a huge structural barrier that puts healthy food, fresh fruits, veggies, lean proteins, literally out of reach for over 23 million people. And this has real measurable consequences. One study found a direct link between pregnant women living in a food desert and having lower levels of beta-carotene, which our bodies convert into vitamin A. This is just a perfect and pretty sobering example of how your zip code can literally determine your nutritional status. And hey, sometimes our own dietary patterns play a role, even the ones that are really well-intentioned.
For instance, vitamin B12 is found almost exclusively in animal products. So this just goes to show that while dietary choices like plant-based eating can have tons of benefits, they also require some careful planning to make sure you're not creating certain nutritional gaps.
Okay, let's make this really concrete. To hit the daily recommendation for iron, that's 18 milligrams, you'd have to eat an enormous amount of certain foods. I mean, 15 cups of broccoli or almost 3 pounds of chicken breast in one day. This really shows how incredibly challenging it can be to meet all your nutrient needs from food alone every single day.
So what do we do with all this? Where do we go from here? Well, it's pretty clear we need to start looking beyond just the number of calories on our plate and think way more about the nutrient quality of our food. Okay, let's just pull this all together for a second. This table really summarizes what we've been talking about, connecting the dots between specific nutrient gaps, the groups most at risk, and why it actually matters for our health. You see iron deficiency hitting women in minority populations the hardest. That huge vitamin D gap affects almost everyone. B12 becomes a real concern for older adults and vegans. And vitamin A deficiencies are tied to both race and geography. Seeing it all laid out like this just drives home the scale and the complexity of this whole problem. And that leaves us with one final, really critical question to chew on. We've mastered the art of producing calories. We've created a true land of plenty. But maybe we've failed to provide a land of nourishment. So in a land of plenty, are we getting the right kind of plenty? The data we've seen today suggests it's high time we find out.